You have a beer?
I do. Me too. Feels good to be back.
It does feel good to be back. Hello, everyone. Post Thanksgiving, no punts allowed.
Suppose I should
Week
say
off?
hi. Yeah. Week off. Big week. We got a lot to talk about.
We really do.
Before we do, this is a good beer. Municipal. Shout out to our friends at Municipal. It's my favorite Municipal shirt, by the way. Municipal.com. No punch 20 for 20% off your first order. It is shopping season. In fact, I'm trying to figure out what to get my brother. My brother kind of sounds weird to say, but is still in college. Behind the curtain, so to speak. But I'm like, well, what do I get? Well, how about Municipal? Telling this to my dad last night. So I got to go through. I got to start the process of Municipal hitting him up for the holidays. It's gonna happen
exactly.
next.
I have a Municipal hat that has been commandeered by my boyfriend. So he took the hat and has it now, and it's his because he likes it so much. So Municipal gear for everybody.
Even if you're stealing it from your folks. I mean, that's
even if you're stealing it from your significant other.
But when it comes to football-y things and New York and traveling and Thanksgiving and I don't know, it feels like we haven't done this in a while. Even though I've seen you and I have done, we've been on video. We did the HBO Max thing. Again, we're going to do it here soon. We'll talk about that. Do you want to talk football? Do you want to talk turkey? I'm going to let you lead the way here. I can talk either.
It seems for everyone who we did not have an episode last week. We apologize. We tried to make it work. It did not work out with travel, and producer Matt had things. So we all really were just trying to get it together and realize, you know what? It's the holiday. Let's enjoy it. And not try and stress ourselves out over things. So, lots of travel on. So we went to New York, did the show on Tuesday, and then both of us left very, very early on Wednesday morning. And I got extremely delayed. Not leaving. My flight was 47 minutes early. Okay, in air. All right, we're doing great. By the way, I'm flying straight to Anaheim to go see my family in Disneyland. And then the pilot comes over and says, "Hey, we're about to land in Vegas in 10 minutes." And I was like, "What? Land in Vegas? What do you mean?" So we land in Vegas and they're like, "Hey, just heads up, like part of the navigation system, like shut down when we were flying here. So we couldn't risk landing on a short runway without it." Yeah. So we had to land in Vegas. We're fixing it. No big deal. We're gonna take off here soon, get you to Anaheim. It's like a 35-minute flight from Vegas to Anaheim or whatever. It was very short. But multiple tries of leaving and it did not work. We ended up on a new plane. And then we also, as we were landing in Anaheim, I guess the runway wasn't cleared, so we took back off again. So after that experience, I am hoping for positive vibes for the next travel week that we have coming up right now. But yeah, that was probably one of the stranger experiences. But I will say the one thing that made me upset was when we first were stopped, they didn't let us off the plane, so I couldn't go gamble in the airport. Also, you can't use a lot of sports betting apps in Vegas. And so you have to use their specific ones. And that just made me just not thrilled. So that delay was unfortunate, but United, you should really let people off the plane to gamble while they're being delayed. And overall, it was a 5-hour delay. All in all, after all was said and done, it was 5 hours of me making it late. So yeah, that was tough, but went to Disneyland, had a good Thanksgiving, got to watch some really good football. But yeah, what a tough day in terms of day before Thanksgiving travel. And I honestly never complain about travel stuff, and that really wasn't that bad, but boy did it put a damper on the energy level that I had.
In my older age, I used to be a 6 a.m. flight machine when we would do profiles, and I'd go to Birmingham or Clemson or wherever. I was always in and out, right?
Yeah.
And I was good at it. I got used to the travel. I'm not good at it anymore. So I did the whole 6 a.m. flight out of New York. It was pouring.
When we left.
And the morning of pre-Thanksgiving travel was insane. The only thing that was wild, I'm used to flying to Vegas. Like leaving New York at 6 a.m. I was landing at like 7, like in Chicago. It was very, very strange.
You were,
went out,
you were,
drank beers. I still did it, barely. It was, Wednesday was we toughed it out. Not as bad, no delays, but I was exhausted. I'm not
it's still exhausting.
For the 6 a.m. flight. No.
But I also, like, I will always take a really early flight because 1, you get a whole day there, 2, less likely to be delayed. So, like, that's the best part is I love getting on a flight early and just going. I do have a red eye tonight, which kind of is a bummer, but I have time to sleep tomorrow, which is nice. Usually I've been doing red eyes and not getting any sleep, which is rough. But, like, travel, like, I know this is our random stuff before we get to the actual footballness of things, it takes a toll on you more than I thought. Like, I don't know. Like you just said, like, you're in and out and it's fine. But when you're not traveling for vacation and for work purposes and it's like go, it is actually very taxing on you. And like, we are so lucky to be able to do this and they fly us places to talk about football, which is such a privilege and an honor. But oh my goodness, am I going to sleep so good next week?
I'm with you. And so it's a perfect set. I mean, this is always an odd week for me, for all of us, but it is an odd week because we do this thing where you've got so many games and then they're gone. And you've got a smattering of games. I'm out of my gambling rhythm, but I'm ready. And I do think there may be some true chaos looming, which we could talk about. We have to talk about Ohio State, Michigan. I am still thinking about this football game.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, okay, Michigan wins. Harbaugh's on the side, not on the sidelines. He's sidelined. And my biggest takeaway from this is still Ryan Day. And I can't quite, I wrote about Ryan Day and I heard some really weird shit in my comments and an email.
I bet.
About Ryan Day. And so I'll give my opinion on this. And we can talk about Michigan too, because I think Michigan deserves a ton of credit for doing this, etc. Where are you at with Ryan Day?
I feel bad for him because I do believe he is a good football coach. And I think with certain environments, there's just an expectation. And like, you're coming after a guy who never lost that game. And like, it's a hard place to be. This kind of gives me like remnants of like what's gonna come next for Alabama. Like, it's not easy to just go in and like pick the right fit right away. And it's not like he hasn't been successful. They certainly, in terms of playoff, don't feel like they really have a shot to get in. After where they've landed, I thought maybe they would be above Oregon. And so like that to me is like very telling where the committee views that, especially sitting out of your conference championship game and all those things. But yeah, it's just a very strange situation because it's not like he's a bad football coach, but like it's not the standard that's been set prior to him. So it's tough. It's kind of one of those things that you think it's kind of time like to maybe part ways. And like
that's exactly it though.
It's like it's such a delicate thing because it's so hard to evaluate like any other school besides like Michigan and Georgia right now and Alabama. Like everybody else would kill to have Ryan Day as their head coach. Like everybody would be like, yeah, no, I feel comfortable with that guy coaching. Do I think it was a little conservative in terms of play calling? Sure. But I don't know. I just think that like it might be time for him to get a fresh start somewhere else and he'd be able to do like he'd be successful in getting to the playoffs somewhere else still. I just don't know that Ohio State is the place for him, especially going up against Michigan. But then you think about it, okay, one more year of this, which obviously I don't think they're going to fire Ryan Day. But
no,
like if Jim Harbaugh is not there anymore and maybe things shift at Michigan and don't stay the way that they are, does it turn out okay? And is Ohio State back on top? It's a very delicate situation where there's so many outside factors to success in this business in terms of like other teams and where they're at with their program. And I think Michigan just has Ohio State's number in this sense, and you're not going to get anywhere. And you're just adding two teams that are to your conference that are in the playoff conversation right now, more so than probably they are, to be honest with you.
I think that I agree. And I wrote like that maybe it's best they just separate, which does not mean maybe Ohio State should fire him. I feel a little bit bad for Ryan Day. I don't know if I did a good enough job in the column saying this. The guy has won like 90% of his games. He's lost two games in the Big Ten or 3 games in the Big Ten, all in Michigan. Yeah. Right? Like, by metrics, he's maybe a blown targeting call in the playoffs last year away from winning the national championship. But the optics are weird. The optics are delicate. Like, to me, it was wild. It felt like every time they showed him, he was working an official last week. And I know that's not the case. But like and you wonder when the failures are going to be so robust that you just have to move on. We had the same conversation with Harbaugh, by the way, and it's worked out pretty good in keeping.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like I feel like they are, obviously we don't think anything's going to happen this offseason. To be fair, though, college football is so crazy, and some of the stuff we've seen go down even toward like after regular season has been over so far has been a little nuts. Yeah. But I do think that this gives like the Harbaugh thing where everyone's like, his job was kind of questioned last year, which I thought was ridiculous. This year, kind of a little bit more justified. And it's like, okay, then, like I said, if Harbaugh leaves Michigan, yes, Michigan's still going to be good. Still an adjustment to bring somebody in, still in a different conference. There's different schools coming in. Like, there's a lot that's going to change. So could everything go right and they end up in the right position? Yes, especially with Ryan Day. Absolutely, they can. But is it going to happen, and how long are they willing to, wait that out? Do you think that, like, for me, it's like he has next year to be in the playoff and win a playoff game, or this is probably going to be it?
I think it's interesting when you listen to like Kirk Herbstreit and Urban Meyer, and these are like Ohio State folks, when they're basically saying that Ryan Day has a Michigan problem, right? Like Ryan Day has a Michigan problem. He does. But he's been close. I just think, again, they get Michigan at home next year. That's the good news about losing. Okay, we get Michigan at home. They play at Oregon. They play at Penn State next year. I don't want to start doing the schedule thing, but like you can't help it, right? Like, again, they're going to be really good, most likely. What do they do at quarterback? It's going to be fascinating to see. I don't know. I don't have an answer for Ryan Day other than it's hard. It's one of the more difficult evaluations of a coach that I can ever remember. Yeah. Kirby Smart, before he started winning every national championship, was kind of in a similar boat, right? Kirby was like, yeah, can't get over the top. They can't win. And then all of a sudden, like, he can't lose, right? We'll see what happens. But to be determined, I think, ultimately. I'm with you. Like, it's a reasonable thing to say. Like, all is not well, even though he's winning so many damn football games.
Yeah. By the way, they do play at Oregon next year.
Yes, that's going to be fun.
Gosh, I love that. That's
let's talk Alabama. Now, when we did our show, you asked me, what game should we watch? I said, keep an eye on the Iron Bowl, right? It was like my last parting shot before we
Ryan and I kind of laughed at you because we were like, you really think it's going to be close?
So keep an eye on the Iron Bowl. So it was close. It was great. Mm-hmm. It was spectacular. I went over I'd finished writing that day. I ended up watching some football with some of my Caitlin's family, my wife's family, who love football. It was a blast. And we're watching that game. And first off, like the fourth and goal from the 31. Yep. Way too easy, a fourth and goal from the 31. That's like, you can't look like that, right? You cannot.
Rushing two, all right.
Yeah, like rushing two. Dude, the whole left side of the field is open and touchdown. So what do we do with this result? Like, what? I mean, like, what do you? Other than it was awesome if you're an Alabama fan, but what do you do with it?
One, I think people are gonna overreact to this and be like, oh, they almost lost to an Alabama team that lost, or an Auburn team that lost to New Mexico State or whatever. Like that's gonna be the thing. No, it's a rivalry game. It is a rivalry game, and those games are hard. Like, whether you, like, I don't think that people realize that in college football specifically, like, I don't think there's necessarily, like, anyone can beat anyone on any given day. I don't actually believe that throughout the season. During rivalry week, I totally believe that. By the way,
Proud of you.
Got through rivalry week. I was close.
Because usually it's Bible week.
Bible week.
Look, you said it, and I'm just like, keep it together. I don't know if she's gonna get. Oh, nailed it.
Rivalry week. We got it. I did it.
Rivalry week.
It's all of that work on HBO Max. Okay.
We need a rivalry week t-shirt.
A rivalry week. Yeah, we do.
Rivalry week.
Rivalry week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I think that people will view that as like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was close. I don't think the committee is going to view it that way. I think the committee understands that was a rivalry game, especially because like these are the type of things that are going to come up when, say, there are, teams that are one-loss conference champions and they're looking at their, resumes and wins and things like that. But yeah, I think in terms of, hey, that is not great that you played a team like that close. Fine, but I wouldn't overreact to that. This Alabama team has certainly figured it out, and I think has every right to be in the playoff conversation. I don't know if you agree.
No, I don't think it's great. Like, ultimately, we're gonna latch on to whatever they do against Georgia. But I'll say this: if they would have won that game by 20, if this becomes an Alabama versus Texas discussion, we can save this for a little bit. Or we could transition right now into the playoff rankings.
We should.
That's not a great data point, right? And you're running out of data points. Now, you won. That's the best data point. You keep your season alive. That's the only data point that matters. But in this instance, and let's talk playoff rankings and what surprised us. But in this instance, like, I think there's more uncertainty surrounding this than I can remember. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely.
I think there's more.
There's more
scenarios.
questions, because I do genuinely believe that, like, if you get a loss in the top 4 this weekend, there is legit conversations for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams.
Well, I also think, as we talk about the rankings, let's start with Ohio State.
Yeah,
they're done, right? They're done.
Yeah, in my opinion, if they rank them 5 over Oregon, fine, but they're still gonna be left out, because if Oregon wins, then they'll get in. If Washington wins, they stay in, and that doesn't open a spot. And then if Alabama beats Georgia, and you didn't play in your championship game, you're not getting in.
I agree.
And same with I think the conversation, honestly, like, would be more interesting around Ohio State and Texas, because, like, Texas would be a conference champion, and you might want to reward them for, being in their conference championship game, and you probably will. And that Alabama win still looks very good. You win in Tuscaloosa, you win. So it looks to me like Ohio State really has no chance unless Texas loses. And unless Texas loses, and I guess Oregon loses. I guess.
Well, why are you laughing?
If Florida State loses and Oregon loses, then they have a shot, and Alabama loses.
I guess if Michigan loses, they still beat Michigan, but losing to Iowa would not be a good loss. Well, I guess it would be an okay loss. All right.
I don't think that they would get in.
No, I think Michigan's still going to get in over them. Like, period.
No, no. I'm saying if Michigan loses to Iowa.
Oh, I'm saying via Ohio State. Okay, let's get something. Let's cut through the bullshit. Michigan is not losing to Iowa.
Okay, you were throwing that hypothetical. No. You were.
I will play the reindeer games, but let me disclaimerify it. Okay. The point total for Iowa's first half is 0.5 points over under. 0.5, not 5.5. So Iowa's not winning. But if Iowa were to win, you would still rank Michigan above Ohio State, yes?
Yes, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know that. I mean, I would think Washington and Oregon would have a better argument than Michigan to get in.
Yeah, for sure.
I would think that, like, if Washington wins, Oregon should get in.
So I think there are a couple of, I think the team, there's a couple of points here. The team that I think is most interesting, the argument that feels like it's gaining some steam, is Florida State. Florida State played a really ugly game against Florida, deserves a lot of credit for winning that game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Florida, they suck. They're a 2.5-point favorite against a Louisville team that just lost to Kentucky. The Jordan Travis injury is devastating. And without him, this is a moment for the selection committee. And whether it's 4 teams or 12 teams, we're going to have a selection committee. They are not one of the 4 best teams without him. They are not. If they win their conference championship and they're undefeated in the ACC, that is a moment. I don't have a great answer, Paige. I am curious how they're treated. Because this team, if it plays Georgia or Michigan, is likely going to get its fucking ass kicked. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is. So how do you treat Florida State, who lost its best player on a freak play, and it really, really sucks? What are we doing? What are we doing with Florida State? Or better yet, not what are you doing? How do you think the committee is going to treat this if Florida State wins?
So I know that Boo Corrigan made a comment on the best and most deserving. I'm trying to look it up right now because I want to credit what he said. And I think it was, it's not coming up. I know he had a comment on this and was like, hey, let's clarify it's one or the other. And I don't know which one it was. Do you know?
No.
He literally.
Sorry. I wish I could have bailed you out there. I did
not. I know he talked about it. I'm finding it.
That's fine.
This is how we do things. And this is how we do things. Best Muslim survey.
But I think that Florida State, like, we've had injury discussions with the committee. We've had teams lose games with players and say, well, they lost that game without X. And that should count. And it does. But how does the committee, if you're an undefeated Power 5 team that wins your conference, you should make it into the playoff. But the quote that was most interesting last night was the way that the committee chair, basically said it doesn't matter. But best teams. Like, I think it was best teams, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I test in best teams as opposed to the best resumes and most deserving.
I had to talk myself into that. The quote was so jarring. I was like, oh shit, is that real? But what do you think? Do you think they get in if they win? I still think that's the easy decision to do, and they get in. If I were to guess now.
They have to. They have to put them in. They're not going to be one of the best teams, and that's why this setup is not great, because you're an undefeated, conference champion in a not great conference, and you're still going to get in. This system was never to leave out an undefeated conference champion, but in this case, there's going to be one loss, teams that deserve to be in over an undefeated conference champion. So there's going to be one loss, like a one-loss Oregon deserves to be in over Florida State based on resume. And I hope, but that's the thing, is like, you can look at resume and say, hey, their resume is better. But everyone would blame the Jordan Travis injury, and I just don't think that they would. I don't think it would be a thing. I don't think they'd be able to do it.
I need to find the hypothetical point spreads that I saw earlier today. They were great.
For a 12 team?
For potential playoff games.
So for like Florida State versus.
Yes. Oh. Hold on. I'm gonna find that right now.
Yeah, this is definitely, to answer your question that you asked before. I do think this is probably one of the more difficult situations that they're going to have, because even if they have the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are even going to be a conversation. So, yeah, I mean, if Washington wins, which I don't know, part of me like kind of believes they can do it if Penix is fully healthy. But if Oregon wins that game, like they burst. So you have Texas and Oregon sitting there, and then a Florida State team that lost, and an Alabama team that could potentially be Georgia. Like, there's so much that this could be potentially the hardest decision they've had to make. They're going to have to leave out somebody who deserves to be in.
All right, I will try to simplify it. So here's what we know. The Pac-12 winner is getting it, in my opinion. Full stop.
Yes.
Like, nothing can dismantle that. in my opinion. I think even how would this not come to fruition? I can't do it. If Oregon beats Washington, if Washington wins, obviously they stay or move up. I think they stay. If Oregon wins, they're going to leapfrog. Well, first off, they're going to move up in front of Washington. I think they'll leapfrog Florida State. They'll be at 3. There's nothing that can happen to bump them out of the top 4. That is a playoff game. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
Michigan is getting in the playoff. Okay, they're not. That's 2 spots. So we have 2 spots there. Alabama, Georgia is the one. If you're looking for some good, Florida State obviously is the one. But Florida State's like you're either in or the out. Alabama, Georgia is so fascinating because you have this Texas argument that's looming, right? You have Texas, you have Alabama. You have Alabama looking ugly in the Iron Bowl. You have Texas just kicking the living shit out of Texas Tech, looking really good. Again, we talked about optics. Granted, now you have Oklahoma State. They're a 2-touchdown favorite. I think because the committee loves Georgia, Alabama would go in over Texas.
Yeah, that's a better win. Like everyone keeps saying, they're like, oh, Texas has the best win of the season. If Alabama beats Georgia in an SEC championship game, that is the best win of the season.
Just want to point out,
what
3 of my 4 playoff teams would be in then. By the way, just I don't want to talk about the 4th one, but
Texas.
Just still, well, like yeah. I want. We're close. Okay. Yes, I agree with you. Well, I don't know if it'd be the best one. It's on a neutral field versus Washington, Oregon. Yes. I get what you're saying. Number one,
this late in the season, Texas's win was way long ago. Like that to me, I think.
Oh, that's gonna piss people off.
I think Oregon beat it. Yeah, I mean, I think Oregon beating Washington is huge, but I don't think Washington's looked like the same team since then. So I think that would be a better win, beating Georgia. Because also, when was the last time Georgia lost?
15.
Like, hello. Yeah, beating a team that's been winning a lot.
The ingredients are there, and I don't think the Pac-12 is going to tell us shit. That game's not going to tell us anything.
No, it's just going to...
It's the most interesting game, I think, but it's not going to be all that revealing. Does that make sense? Like, it is. Yeah. Like, it's an elimination game. It's a quarterfinal, which is awesome, but it's not going to tell us much about the 4.
It won't tell us much about the 4, but it will tell us whichever team gets in. So say Georgia dominates Washington. That's going to tell us that Oregon has a shot at winning a national championship. Like the type of game that we see against that, or if Washington has...
You said Georgia dominates Washington?
Oh, no. Oregon dominates Washington. Sorry.
I thought you were going next level. I thought you were going
No. I'm saying if Oregon...
Inception level. Yes, I got you.
If Oregon... Jeez. This is what I'm talking about, the sleep.
No, I got you.
If Oregon beats Washington by a lot, what we learned from that game is that Oregon has a legitimate shot at winning a national championship. Because beating this Washington team by a lot, seeing what they've got out of Bo Nix in a game that's win or go home, that says a lot.
I can't wait. And we'll tease this again, but we are going to be in New York. We're going to break down the final playoff results live on HBO Max. We're also going to be together watching games Friday night and Saturday, which is
I was just going to say, it's funny because you and I have watched national championship games together, but we've never watched multiple games together.
I know.
And I feel like this is going to be a very fun day of discussion because it is. It's it's us getting to do this. Maybe we'll
should we go live Saturday with the
should we go live? We should go live after the game's on Saturday and be like, hey, this is what we think is going to happen tomorrow. So we will do that. And then you can watch the show on Max. So we will go live. How about that? I'm promising you guys we will go live on our Instagram.
I want to talk about games. So I'm going to move through. We have other topics. And we'll talk playoff at the end. But coaching carousel, buyouts. I wrote about it. And I actually did fair amount of research and dive on this. And It's pretty fucking wild when Indiana could pay their coach $15.5 million to not coach.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, on the tail end of that, the collective analysis we've got $3 million for the transfer portal. Like we're here, right? So Indiana and Houston are paying double-digit millions of dollars to Tom Allen and Dana Holgorsen. And this is all very unhealthy. Now, I'm not going to go down the route of, my wife is a teacher, so I love teachers, but like, I'm not doing the pay the teacher thing. That's not the point of my rant. Okay. I'm not going to do that here. I get it. This is a business. This generates money for the school. You're going to treat this like you would with a CEO or something. This is all reaching a real, I'm not even talking about Jimbo, by the way. That whole thing is so fucked up. That's an outlier. Okay. $75 million. Let's not even acknowledge that, although we have to. This is reaching a really unhealthy place, Paige. And I'm wondering, my whole point of this story was, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get out of this? We're not paying people over 100, $10, $20 million to not coach. I don't have a good answer. I think the answer is the failures have to be so spectacular that eventually you're just like, we can't, like the collective unison of ADs and universities and donors have to say like, holy shit, let's chill. I don't think we're anywhere close to that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I don't think we're close at all. That's the thing, is it's just going to keep going. And you know what? Fine. I'm fine with it. It is ridiculous that we're paying coaches not to pay this much. We always talk about this, but it's getting out of hand. The collectives are, coaches are saying, hey, if you are mad about this season, then pony up. Like, and more than ever before, people are like, hey, pay up. Yeah, it's kind of wild that there's this much. And you would expect it from like the blue bloods and like the major schools that we normally talk about in a playoff conversation. But this is everybody. This is really everyone. So it is fascinating. But I think the other thing is just the fact that like the coaching carousel is moving so quickly. I also thought it was funny that like the rumor mill was like, oh, we're going to get Stoops to Texas A&M. Then it was like, no, that's actually not true. Who knows if it was because fans were very upset with that hire. Obviously, they got Duke's coach, but it is kind of nuts. Like, it is a little bit wild, which, by the way, is a good segue into transfer portal stuff that's happening. Riley Leonard, one of the quarterbacks that is in the transfer portal, rumor was that KJ Jefferson was also going. He said, haven't made a decision yet. There's going to be a lot of movement. So I'm pretty excited to see what things shape up to be. But the school that we started the season talking about and we're going to end the season talking about is Colorado. Obviously, there's a lot going on. People leaving, people decommitting, all kinds of things. Coaches being like, peace out. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think Deion finds a way to kind of like stop the hemorrhaging really of all this stuff?
It does feel like we're reaching this point that you and I talked about, where if things turn, like the demoted OC just got a head coaching job. All right. Like that, that's wild. So like you've got a really interesting situation. They will acquire in the portal. The other part that was interesting is Deion saying, we're not going to buy our roster. And then a couple of days later saying, well, we're calling on people to raise money for the collective. Now, Deion's trying to do things his way. The vibes are not immaculate. You had players calling out the effort and saying it's a selfish roster. You've got decommits, like you mentioned. Colorado went from 1 win to 4 wins, which in most circumstances would be considered an enormous step forward.
Yeah.
Right. So let's at least lay out the facts. But it does feel like the momentum is waning. Now, you get a couple of transfer portal. They will land people in the transfer portal. I still think it'll be a desirable place to play. But I do think that I wonder about the health of the roster long term when they are behind like Colorado State in recruiting. That is concern. You need to build. You look at what Alabama does, and that's not a fair comparison. You look at what any top 40 program does. They're still building off of their recruiting and then subsidizing holes with the portal.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like Deion has adopted that strategy yet. And I'm curious what the payout is going to be. But I'm with you. Vibes are not great right now. Vibes are not great at all.
Vibes are not great. But also I hate the people that are like dancing on their grave, like, oh, this didn't work out, blah, blah, blah. I was right. It's like, it's not about that. It's more about the fact that like this works to an extent, but there are certain things that you have to manage and make sure that, are, in place to keep the ship running. Like having players, like you said, having players talk out about how it's a selfish team. Like there's something to be said about like not taking it out of the locker room and having people be able to like speculate on those things and do those things. So I hope, and I do think that they will, like you said, definitely have a good transfer portal situation going on. But yeah, it's definitely not a fun situation to deal with, and it's just like a negative. And I feel like the conversations that they're forcing Dion to have are really just like, all right, we get it that you're happy that this isn't working out. We understand.
By the way, before we get into picks, one more thing. Yep. Bobby fucking Petrino back at Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
Now,
college football is just silly.
The current state of college football, which by the way, I read was watched for more minutes this year than any other year, with Army and Navy still to play regular season. Bobby Petrino back in Arkansas after all of that. Oh, first off, not a bad hire. Can I do this take? It's weird, and I can't believe they would do this, but also, like, Sam Pittman needs some offense, and I think it's actually, that's a guy.
Yeah.
But still, like, holy shit. Like, I thought I had to check. Like, Pete Thamel, this has got to be a parody account. No, it's Pete Thamel. This is real. Oh, my God. Wild. College football's on its good shit right now, man. Like, it is absolutely... I still cannot believe it. It still does not feel real. And did you see his contract too, by the way? So he gets 1.4, 1.5 million a year. He gets like 8 tickets, country club membership. See that? There's some perks.
But of course.
Yeah, if you're looking for the interesting Bobby Petrino perks, it's not bad to be Bobby Petrino right now. Got that country club membership. Got some nice car allowance. Like, dude's doing all right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, not hurting. All right, let's preview some games. We've got championship week, which is much easier to say than rivalry week.
Rivalry
week.
ACC. I have a lock. This is nice. We could just kind of mix together locks and breakdowns of games.
Breakdowns. We're having a hard time today, guys. We are really having a hard time today.
I like Louisville in this game. Spread is 2.5. I think, you talked about Florida State, like, being ugly. Louisville in, like, the ultimate look-ahead game, which really didn't need. They're not going to make the playoff. I like Louisville in this spot. I think Florida State is still hurting.
Yeah, me too.
They're hurting a little bit with Jordan Travis.
Well, I think they're limited, too. They're very limited now. So I don't think that there's enough space. Yeah, so I'm definitely thinking that I'll go with Louisville as well.
That line too.
Also, it makes the most fascinating college football playoff stuff. So just saying that.
We're just willing this one in.
We're willing it because we want chaos. Please.
Yeah. SEC is probably the toughest game for me. It's not a lock. Louisville is one of my locks. SEC, I lean Georgia. I think that this is tough. Georgia, by the way, didn't play a great game either. 5.5. 5.5. Total is 54.5. Do kind of like the over a little bit. I think there'll be points here. So, look, Alabama's strategy here is let Jalen Milroe cook, right? Like, for Alabama to win, Milroe has to be cooking, which he can't do. I don't think the Georgia defense is dominant. It's good. I just, and again, we shit on Alabama. Georgia did not play a great game last week either against Georgia Tech. That was not good. Now it's, different kind of rivalry week. I think Georgia's going to win this game,
though. It's hard because I think that this Alabama team can beat Georgia. It's just going to take a lot to go right. They're going to need to make that offensive uncomfortable, force turnovers, but I think they can do it. And I think they're out a little. They've got a chip on their shoulder, so I will go the other way And I will say that Alabama covers.
Of course.
Soft. Hey, I didn't say money line. I'm not picking them to win. I just said they cover. Field goal. It's going to be down to a field goal. Because Georgia always gets lucky.
Oh, wow. Pac-12, I think this is going to be an ass kicking. I think Oregon's going to kick the living shit out of Washington.
I don't know if they're going to kick the living shit out of them. I think the spread was 9.5 last time I checked. I feel like that's a lot of points.
What are they?
You have to understand that this Washington team has played up or down to whoever they play against. So I do think that they're going to show up. This is a chance for the playoff on the line. Don't know that Penix is fully healthy. He looked very, very uncomfortable. But
what was going on there, by the way? Was that nerves or physical discomfort?
I have no idea. But something doesn't seem right. But I'm just saying I don't know that it's an ass kicking. Because I do think that this is going to be a game that's like and Dan Lanning is going to be out for blood for sure. But I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up the Penix thing because I was with a bunch of people, and every time I would turn around, he's huddled over. He's after throws looked very displeased. It was a lot. It was a lot to unpack there. So I'm with you on that. Big 12, Oregon's going to win by a lot. I'm not with you on that. Texas now a 15-point favorite over Oklahoma State. Wow, it's a big number. Been going up too. Total in this game is 55. My lock is the over. Can Oklahoma State score 17 points? If they can, I think this game's going to go over. I think it has a chance to be kind of fun. Texas looks like it's and by the way, Texas needs to make an impression in this game. That's the other thing.
Yes,
offensively,
they need to.
This is going to be a Sark special. I think
it needs to be. They need to make a statement. They've looked really dominant, so I would. And I've also seen this Oklahoma State team. It's a very strange team, by the way, to watch. Some of it, if you look at some of the scores of their games and also their comeback last week, just very odd. But yeah, I'm thinking Texas is going to dominate this to put themselves in the best position to be in if everybody else kind of falls short.
I would agree. And then for the Power Fives, the Big Ten. What are your thoughts?
What's the spread? 22? 23 and a half?
22.
22.
It was 23, and now it's 22. Iowa money is rolling in.
Buddy. I think it's going to be...
So...
How's their run defense? Do you think that they're going to be able to stop
good
Michigan?
It's good. It's not great. It's good. They just can't fucking score, Paige. They just can't fucking score. That's the problem here.
I would almost venture to take, because also Michigan, again, much like Oregon, out for blood, out to make a point. So I'm gonna roll with. But Michigan,
I don't know if they have to. Do they have to make a point? They're not.
No, but they're going to continue making a point. They're going to continue to make a point. They're going to run up any score and say, harmless. "Oh, you wanted an interesting." No. This is an FU to the Big Ten. You wanted people to tune into this game. We're going to make it not even a close game, so people tune out, and the ratings are bad, and you as a conference can be punished for suspending our coach.
Did you see Kirk Ferentz's quote? He's like, I think it would be really kind of funny if we screwed the whole thing up. That made me laugh because that's not a Kirk Ferentz thing to say. They are not. They have a great defense. Iowa, obviously, it's not as good as it was. They have a great punter. Their kicker, they had to switch kickers last week, which is not very Iowa. It's not going to be good, most likely. But, whatever, man. Iowa's in the game. We're just happy to be here.
My team's sadly not in the Pac-12 championship game. There's still hope, but we're out. That's okay.
There are a couple other really interesting games that are in my locks. SMU versus Tulane. I like SMU plus 3.5. Troy versus App State. I think Troy is a really good play.
What's the line? What's the line on that?
Troy's a 6-point favorite versus App State. They both won a ton of games in a row, but Troy's running game is really good. App State's not so good. New Mexico State versus Liberty. This game is fascinating. Jared Kill has done an amazing job. Liberty is a 10.5-point favorite. I don't think this is my locks. I went light on locks this week because there's just not that many games, so I picked 5. But I'm very curious because I really wanted to take New Mexico State. I just think Liberty might be a cut above, and it looks like the money is behind Libertyville. Liberty, there you go.
You
I said
do
Libertyville.
it every time.
God
Libertyville.
Damn it.
Shout out Libertyville.
Yeah.
All right. So before we go, I'm going to ask you to give me before the games happen, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the Final Four is actually going to be?
I think it's going to be Georgia, Michigan. I'm writing it down right now. Hold on. Oregon and Texas.
I think the exact same.
Well, that's boring.
I know. Or I could play devil's advocate and I could say Bama gets in.
Oh, Jesus.
But I do think that I think that Florida State loses and we get Oregon wins. Oregon gets in. Washington's out.
So if Georgia loses, then you just go Michigan, Oregon, Texas, and Bama.
Hell yeah.
Could you imagine that? Wow.
Roll.
Then you'd have Alabama, Michigan, and Oregon, Texas. Oh, in terms of
please,
general...
Please.
Just in terms of general fun, that would be great.
Please, Lord, please. Football
Georgia,
gods.
Texas versus Michigan, Oregon, also pretty good. It's like the Florida State is just looming there, too. Like,
poor Florida State. I feel bad. I kind of feel bad, but at the same time, I don't.
All right. So what other random... I mean, we did random shit.
We did our random stuff. Now we just got to remind everyone that, one, we are going to go live on Saturday now. Now that I've said it, we're doing it. And Sunday, we will be live in the BR app on Max right when the show and the rankings start. So come hang out with us. Get in the comments. Yes. Tell us what the committee got wrong. Scream and shout if your team is not in. It's definitely going to be a sight to see. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the final bit here.
It's kind of a different show for us too, because we have been reacting to saying what's going to happen, and then now we can talk about the games, right? Now we get to actually spend a good amount of time, I think, previewing the 2 semis. We actually don't know when the rankings are going to come out, so we're going to have to fill some air.
We're just going to have some time. We're going to have a great time.
Well, they like think that we'll have a problem like stalling, like, buddy, you and I
guys have seen this show.
Yeah, we we could take an hour and stall. I gotta go get my daughter from tumbling class. That's in my immediate future.
I have to catch a flight.
Safe travels. I'll see you in 2 days, and we will see you all
live from New York.
Cheers.